All right, welcome to What Ails Ya in Hopsology, Taproom, and Wine Bar. We're going to talk a little bit about CO2 and checking for leaks. If you're looking at this stuff, then you should already know you have a kegerator. And if you are constantly having to fill your CO2 tank with us, then we have a leak somewhere. And instead of you having to bring it out for us to test, I'm going to show you how to do that at home. So, real quick, we have CO2 tank, regulator. I have some other regulators here to kind of show the difference. We have line, and then we have the beer coupler here. So what we're going to talk about is how to check these for leaks. So first of all, when a CO2 tank is on, right? So right now I just turned it off. So when the CO2 tank's on, what we're going to do is we are going to turn this all the way on, and we're going to tighten it to the top. Just like you would tighten it to the bottom, we're going to tighten it to the top. We never want to just crack it open. Now, moving from there, this is how the CO2 is regulated. So, this regulates the CO2 into these lines here that are going to your keg. Okay, so all we care about is this gauge here. This gauge takes the pressure from here. This regulates it down. This tells us how much we're sending down to our keg or through our lines here. So this gauge is worthless. And just to give you a little context, right now we're looking at about 600 PSI. That's because this tank is cold. This came out of my kegerator. If we were to stick this tank in the sun and hook it back up to this same gauge, it would go up to about 1500 PSI because now this CO2 tank is hot. Depending on the pressure or depending on the temperature of the CO2 will depend on the pressure it's putting off. But we don't care because there's 600 PSI here, but we only need 8 to 12 of that PSI to put down into our keg. So this gauge is worthless. It is not an empty full gauge, so do not look at it. If you have a regulator that looks like this, where there's only one gauge, that's fine, because guess what? We don't need this gauge, Linda. Two different types of regulators. You have ones with knobs, ones with where you need a flathead screwdriver to turn. They both work the same way. As you screw it in, the pressure goes up. As you unscrew it, the pressure will decrease, but some regulators, and most regulators, will not regulate pressure down. So once you unscrew it, you have to pull the release to pull the pressure out of here, and then it'll go to zero. So where that comes in handy is if you're trying to fix anything, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to zero, depressurize the regulator, put this on your keg, depressurize your keg, everything's at zero. Now we're gonna slowly turn this up until we get to the pressure we want. All right, so moving over to here, anytime we're checking for a leak, because that's what we're talking about today, is leaks, you are going to wanna overpressurize your system. So what I mean by that is normally we keep it right around 12 or 8 to 12 PSI in Arizona. For testing purposes, I always like to go to about 30 PSI because if it won't leak at 30, then it's probably not going to leak at a lower pressure. So what we're going to do is we're going to take either soap and water. This happens to be Star San. If you are a home brewer, Star San bubbles really well. It works perfectly. But if you're at home using things you have at home, you can use Dawn dish soap with some water, mix it up in a bottle, and we're looking for bubbles. We're going to start here. We're going to be very liberal on it. Okay, anything, you can check the tank by just putting it around here and checking here. We don't have any leaks. We're gonna check any threads that we have here. Being really liberal on it, no bubbles. We're gonna look all the way around this to make sure there's no bubbles coming out anywhere. Moving down to here. We're gonna check here. Now, see how this ball valve right here is in line with the hose, meaning the CO2 can pass through. This one is horizontal to it, so the CO2 will stop right here. So we need to turn this on so that now everything is pressurized coming this way, and we can check. Now we're going to go down this line to the ending, or to the ends where these are. Now, this is for home brewing. These connections are called ball locks. Doesn't matter if you have these connections or if you have these connections, we need to check them all. The way you check these, into the hose here, we're just checking to make sure there's no bubbles. Nothing there. So you could also take this whole you could take these whole things right here, stick them in a bucket of water, and see if there's any leaks that way. Once we're on here, we're going to connect this, still pressurized. We're going to check right here, make sure there's no leaks, make sure there's no leaks here, making sure there's no leaks here. Now, if you had a commercial kegerator at home, you would know this keg coupler, this line right here, would be connected right there, right here, okay? And you would bypass this whole thing here, so you would just check these things here. Now, what are we looking for a leak? Or how can we make sure that CO2 is getting down here? Well, you could easily do that by just putting that down while you're holding it here to see. We know CO2 is getting there, so now we know there's no leaks. What are we looking for? Well, let's see. Okay. If there's a leak with your bubbles, that's what we're looking for. That's a little excessive. Any little leak, like any little bubble, and you're going to see it. You're going to drain your tank in a matter of hours, possibly days, depending on how much the leak is. Here's sort of another little example of what we're looking for. Any little leak. See that little, check all the way around here. See how it's bubbling right there? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that leak. So that way we can then take it and tighten it. And now, no leaks, okay? Any little bubble is going to make your system leak out. Now, let's say you're fed up with it, you can't figure it out, you don't know what I'm talking about. How can we help? Well, you can bring it into us. So what you do is most likely the CO2 is connected to your keg coupler here. So all you have to do, this is your beer side coming out and going up to your tower, okay? You're just going to disconnect this hose, unscrew this, and bring this in with this, your CO2 tank, and your regulator. And we can help you here try to find out where the leak is so that you guys can stop coming in every couple days, filling up your CO2 and getting frustrated. All right. Why would it be leaking here? Well, because you didn't put it on really tight. This little guy is sitting here. Okay. There's a couple different things. See how this is a metal connection here? So there needs to be something in here that can seal against the metal in the CO2 tank. So that's where this comes in. So we stick this here, and it doesn't matter which way, just stick it in there. And then this will get screwed on to the tank. This creates your seal for the CO2. Some other regulators have it built in. See how this one's built onto there? So that one's built on, so you would just connect that and nice and tight, and you'd be good. When we are connecting a CO2 tank, we need to make sure that we are putting it on with a nice size wrench. You can see how big this wrench is. So because we need to have a nice, good connection. Yeah? You saw how tough that was for me to get off. Still is, right? There we go. So we need to make sure we get a nice, strong connection on that. So this is another style. Okay, see that little black O-ring there? That little black O-ring will make that seal against the CO2 tank as well. If you have a big little cavity right here, then this little black O-ring won't work. We need to put one of these in with it. Okay, so this guy's here. We're coming here on until we get to about hand tight right there. Once it's hand tight, take our big wrench, put it on here, and go nice and tight on there. Okay? And that is how we check for leaks and kind of how this regulator operates. One more thing to talk about, if we look at the side view here, some regulators, and it's hard to see this one, let me screw it. Some regulators will have what we call a lock nut on here. Staying. Okay. This little lock nut This lock nut right here, that guy, that is meant to lock the pressure. And it's really only good for bars so that bartenders don't play with the regulator once it's set. So this can get confusing because if this lock nut's down here, you can't turn this in. You won't be able to turn this in. So just keep this little lock nut all the way up towards here and then it won't be an issue. Here's another style of lock nut. This one on here. And this one's really good, but you can see it's kind of, this one's on there. This right here, this little shaded thing here, this actually will come down here and that's the lock nut. We just want to keep it up here so that it doesn't cause any issues. So this one, if it's down here, you will not be able to turn this in. So we need to keep this up and away from the base of the regulator cup. All right, guys, I hope that's helpful. Like I said, we're going to try to make some more instructional videos. So we're going to talk about foaming probably in another one. But thanks for watching. And yeah, like and share. Call me if you guys have any questions or come in for a beer, glass of wine. We're always here. Cheers.